You are sitting at your desk at 2 in the morning, with your eyes burning and your back aching. You have convinced yourself that this pain is proof of progress. You believe that if you are suffering, then you must be succeeding. This is the noble lie of exhaustion. We are taught from childhood that the harder we push against the stone, the more likely it is to move. But look around you. Look at the people working 3 jobs just to survive. Look at the leaders who seem to glide through their days, making decisions that change the world while barely breaking a sweat. If heavy labor were the sole determinant of wealth, then the exhausted laborer would be the king of the world. But he is not. There is a fundamental misunderstanding of mechanics here. Effort implies resistance. When you say you are putting in effort, you are admitting that there is friction. You are fighting against something. You are driving with the emergency brake pulled up. The grind culture tells you to push harder on the gas pedal. It tells you to burn out the engine. But the masters of industry and art do not operate this way. They operate in a state of flow. When an athlete breaks a world record, they rarely describe the moment as difficult. They describe it as inevitable. They describe it as smooth. They have removed the friction. The poverty trap is the belief that struggle is a currency that buys success. It is not. Struggle is simply the measurement of your inefficiency. You are exhausting yourself, running up a down escalator and calling it ambition. It is time to step off the machine. It is time to understand that true power is not about how much weight you can carry, but about how effortlessly you can move it. Chapter 1. Defining the friction. There is a dangerous misunderstanding buried deep in our cultural lexicon. We have conflated the concept of value with the concept of suffering. We look at a man who is exhausted, his eyes rimmed with red, his body failing him, and we say that he is working hard. We look at his struggle, and we assign it a moral weight. We tell ourselves that because he is suffering, he must be deserving. This is the great poverty trap of the modern age. It is the belief that the universe pays you for your pain. It does not. Reality is a cold accountant. It pays you only for the energy you transfer effectively, not for the heat you lose in the process. To understand why hard work keeps you poor, you must look at the physics of the word effort. In the realm of mechanics, effort is not a virtue. It is a measurement of inefficiency. If a machine requires a tremendous amount of effort to perform a simple rotation, we do not call that machine noble. We call it broken. We say that it has too much friction. Friction is the resistance that one surface or object encounters when moving over another. It is the enemy of momentum. It turns kinetic energy into useless heat. When you see an engine smoking and grinding, you are witnessing a system in a state of high effort. You are witnessing a system that is destroying itself. Yet when we look at human beings, we flip this logic on its head. We applaud the smoke. We praise the grinding gears. We have convinced ourselves that if a task feels easy, it must be trivial. But if a task feels like dragging a boulder through waist-deep mud, we pat ourselves on the back and call it a job well done. This is a fundamental error in how we perceive productivity. The sensation of effort is not a sign that you are doing something right. It is often a biofeedback signal that you are doing something wrong. When you feel the sensation of trying hard, what you are actually feeling is internal resistance. It is the psychological friction of a divided mind. Part of you wants to do the work. Another part of you, perhaps the subconscious or the biological preservation instinct, does not want to do the work. These two vectors collide.
One foot slams on the gas, while the other slams on the brake. The engine screams, the wheels spin, smoke fills the room. You feel exhausted. You feel like you have worked an 18-hour day in 3 hours. But have you actually traveled anywhere? Usually the answer is no. You have merely burned fuel. Compare this to the state of the master. Observe a grandmaster pianist, a top-tier surgeon, or an elite athlete in the middle of a record-breaking performance. If you ask them afterward how hard they were trying, they will often look at you with confusion. They will tell you it felt like nothing. They were not grinding. They were not suffering. They were in a state of flow. In this state, the internal friction drops to near zero. The intention to act and the action itself become simultaneous. There is no gap between thought and movement where resistance can fester. They are not working hard in the traditional sense. They are working efficiently. The poverty trap catches people when they begin to sell their friction rather than their output. The person stuck in the grind believes that the heavier the burden, the larger the reward. They seek out the difficult path because they believe the difficulty itself creates the value. They focus on the sensation of the struggle. They wear their burnout like a badge of honor. But the market, and indeed the physical world, does not care about your struggle. It cares about the result. A ditch dug with a spoon requires immense effort. A ditch dug with an excavator requires almost none. The spoon digger is working harder. The excavator operator is rich. This is why the mantra of hard work is so often a cage. It blinds you to leverage. It blinds you to strategy. It keeps you focused on the expenditure of your own limited biological energy. You become obsessed with how much you can lift, rather than asking why you are lifting it, or if it needs to be lifted at all. You become a laborer in your own life, rather than the architect. The architect does not sweat. The architect designs a system where the weight is carried by structure, not by muscle. We must redefine what we mean by work. Real work, the kind that changes your financial destiny and alters the trajectory of your life, should not feel like a battle. It should feel like a descent. It should feel like water flowing downhill. Water does not try to reach the ocean. It simply follows the path of least resistance. It possesses immense power, enough to carve canyons through stone. Yet it never strains. It uses gravity. It uses the terrain. It is relentless, but it is never struggling. To escape the trap, you must stop measuring your day by how tired you are when you go to sleep. Exhaustion is not a metric of success. It is a metric of drag. You must begin to identify where you are generating friction in your own psychology. Where are you forcing outcomes? Where are you fighting against your own natural inclinations? The goal is to align your vectors so that your conscious desire and your subconscious drives are moving in the exact same direction. When that happens, the sensation of effort vanishes. You are no longer pushing, you are simply moving. This is the transition from the grind to the flow. It is the move from the poverty of friction to the wealth of momentum. We will explore exactly how to achieve this alignment in the coming chapters. But for now, you must let go of the noble lie. You must accept that your pain is not a deposit in a bank. It is just pain. If you are ready to dismantle the structures of resistance in your own life and prefer a path of clarity over a path of struggle, ensure you are subscribed to this channel. We are building a library of efficiency here, and you will not want to miss the next piece of the puzzle. Chapter 2.
The cult of the grind. There is a peculiar romance attached to exhaustion. If you listen to the conversations in office break rooms or scroll through the motivational captions on social media, you will notice a recurring theme. We have turned suffering into a currency. We believe that if a goal does not hurt to achieve, then it cannot possibly be worth having. This is the central dogma of what we can call the cult of the grind. It is a belief system that equates high blood pressure with high performance and sleepless nights with inevitable success. But let us strip away the romanticism and look at the mechanics of what we actually call hard work. In the realm of physics, effort is not a measurement of speed. It is a measurement of resistance. If you see an engine smoking and screaming, it does not necessarily mean the car is moving fast. It often means the parking brake is engaged. The noise and the heat are not evidence of progress. They are evidence of friction. When we apply this mechanical reality to human psychology, we uncover an uncomfortable truth. The sensation of trying hard is actually the sensation of internal conflict. It is the feeling of one part of your mind pushing toward a goal, while another, deep-rooted part of your psyche pushes back against it. You are pressing the accelerator and the brake at the exact same time. The result is a massive expenditure of energy and a minimal amount of movement. This is the definition of the grind. It is a state of high friction and low velocity. We are taught from childhood to admire the person who struggles. We applaud the student who pulls an all-nighter to cram for an exam, even though that behavior demonstrates a lack of planning and a failure of mastery. We praise the employee who answers emails at midnight because it signals devotion, but we rarely stop to ask if that devotion is effective. We have confused the optics of busyness with the reality of productivity. Consider the masters of any craft. Watch a virtuoso pianist play a complex concerto. Watch a grandmaster chess player make a move. Watch an elite athlete in the zone. You will not see them gritting their teeth. You will not see the tension of the grind. You will see fluidity. You will see grace. This is the state of flow. It is the absence of resistance. The pianist is not trying to play the piano. The pianist is simply allowing the music to occur through years of alignment and practice. The difference between the grind and flow is the difference between fighting the current and navigating the river. The person in the grind believes they must punch the water to make it move. The person in flow understands the hydrodynamics and steers the boat. The tragedy is that the grind is a poverty trap. It is a trap because it keeps you focused on the exertion rather than the outcome. When you believe that hard work is the only variable for success, you tend to solve problems by throwing more hours at them. You think that if you just dig the hole faster, you will eventually find gold. But if you are digging in the wrong location, no amount of sweat will change the geological reality. Grind culture tells you to dig harder. Alignment tells you to check the map. This obsession with effort blinds us to leverage. Leverage is the art of achieving more with less. It is the Archimedes principle applied to economics and lifestyle. A lever allows a human to lift a boulder that would otherwise break their back. The grind demands you lift the boulder with your bare hands, because using a lever feels like cheating. It feels too easy. And because we are addicted to the feeling of difficulty, we reject the easy path, even when it is the most logical one. We must understand that money and success are not rewards for suffering. The market does not care how many hours you suffered. The market only cares about the value you provide.
If you can provide massive value,
In 10 minutes of aligned action, you will be rewarded more than someone who provides little value over 10 hours of tortured labor. The construction worker toiling in the sun works harder than the architect sketching in the air conditioning. If hard work were the sole determinant of wealth, the laborer would be the billionaire. But the architect is operating with leverage and specialized knowledge, while the laborer is selling pure exertion. This is not a judgment on their character, but it is a cold observation of the economic machine. To escape the poverty trap, you must stop taking pride in your own exhaustion. You must stop wearing your stress as a badge of honor. You need to become suspicious of the feeling of struggle. When things feel difficult, it is usually a signal that you are forcing something that is not ready, or that you are approaching the problem from a disadvantageous angle. Resistance is feedback. If you are walking through a door and it feels like hard work, check to see if it is locked. Check to see if you are pushing on a pull door. The grinder pushes harder until the hinges break. The aligned thinker stops, steps back, and tries the handle. This requires a massive psychological shift. You have to be willing to look lazy to the outside observer. You have to be willing to sit in silence and think, while others are running around in circles making noise. You have to value the clarity of your decisions more than the volume of your actions. The goal is not to stop doing things. The goal is to remove the friction from the doing. It is to reach a point where the action feels inevitable rather than forced. This is the frequency of least resistance. It is the state where the internal brake is released. When you release that brake, you realize that the energy you were using to force yourself to work is now available to actually do the work. You move faster not because you are pushing harder, but because you have stopped holding yourself back. You leave the cult of the grind and enter the physics of flow. And in that space, you find that the things you chased for years begin to move toward you with a terrifying speed. Success stops being a mountain you climb and becomes a gravity you generate. Chapter 3. The Vibration of Desperation. Consider the image of a man drowning in deep water. He thrashes against the surface. He kicks his legs with violent intensity. He screams until his lungs burn. He expends every ounce of caloric energy he possesses in a battle for survival. To a distant observer on the shore, this looks like the definition of hard work. It is maximum effort. It is total commitment. But to the water, it is just panic. The ocean does not care about his effort. It only reacts to his physics. The more violently he strikes the surface, the faster he sinks. This creates a terrifying paradox that most people spend their entire lives trying to solve. We are raised on the doctrine that the sheer volume of our exertion determines our reward. We are told that if we are suffering, we must be making progress. We believe that the burning in our muscles and the exhaustion in our minds are receipts for future payment. But this is the great deception of the grind. True power never struggles. True mastery never feels like hard work. We must examine the vibration of desperation. When we use the word vibration here, we are not speaking of crystals or magic. We are speaking of the very real psychological and physiological state that dictates your performance. It is the hum of your nervous system. When you are operating from a place of hard work, you are usually operating from a place of resistance. Think about the language we use. When you say you are trying to succeed, you are engaging in a linguistic admission of defeat. To try implies that there is a heavy obstacle you are pushing against.
It implies conflict. It means that one part of you wants to move forward, and another part of you is digging its heels into the ground. That internal friction creates heat.
It creates exhaustion. But it does not necessarily create motion. You are burning fuel just to stand still. This state of desperate effort is a poverty trap because of what it does to the human brain. Psychologists call this the scarcity mindset. When you feel a desperate need for money or success, your cognitive horizon shrinks. Your IQ actually drops. You lose the ability to plan for the long term because your biological survival mechanisms have hijacked your executive function. You become obsessed with the immediate problem. You work harder and harder digging a hole because you are too frantic to stop and build the ladder. The marketplace is a cold and objective mechanism that mirrors this internal state back to you. It does not reward how hard you try. It rewards the value you provide, and value is rarely created in a state of panic. Consider a salesman who needs a commission to pay his rent. He enters the room with the stench of desperation on him. He speaks too fast. He pushes too hard. He laughs too loudly at jokes that are not funny. The potential client recoils. They may not understand why they feel uncomfortable, but the signal is clear. This person is a threat. This person is taking something rather than giving something. The salesman is working incredibly hard. He is grinding. He is doing everything the hustle culture gurus told him to do. But his very effort is the wall standing between him and his success. His desperation repels the very thing he desires. Now contrast this with the state of competence. Watch a master pianist perform a concerto. Watch a surgeon perform a complex operation. Watch a billionaire make a decision that shifts entire industries. It does not look like hard work. It looks like flow. There is a terrifying silence to their actions.
The pianist is not trying to play the music. The music is simply happening through the efficiency of their neural pathways. There is zero resistance. There is zero drag. This is the state you must seek if you wish to escape the gravitational pull of poverty. You must realize that the feeling of struggle is not a badge of honor. It is a check engine light. If a machine rattles and shakes and overheats, we do not say it is working hard. We say it is broken. We say it is inefficient. Yet when a human being destroys their health and their sanity in the pursuit of wealth, we applaud them for their grit. We fetishize the struggle because effort is easy to measure, while alignment is difficult to quantify. It is easier to praise the man digging a ditch with a spoon than the man who pauses for 3 days to design a shovel. The man with the spoon is working harder. He is sweating more. He is bleeding more. But he will die poor because he has mistaken activity for productivity. The vibration of desperation is a signal that you are focusing on the lack of something. You are focused on the empty space in your bank account. You are focused on the job you do not have. This focus creates a feedback loop in your subconscious mind that anchors you to your current reality. You cannot build wealth when your entire psychological architecture is designed to manage poverty. You must stop trying and start being. You must stop pushing against the door and check to see if it pulls open. The transition from the grind to the flow is not about doing less work. It is about removing the friction from the work you do. It is about realizing that the heavy breathing of the runner is not the speed. The sweat is not the distance. The exhaustion is not the money. As we move deeper into this philosophy, we must dismantle the identity you have built around your own suffering. You are likely afraid to let go of the struggle because you do not know who you are without it. You worry that if you stop grinding, you will stop moving. But the opposite is true.
When you stop thrashing against the water, you finally float. And only when you float can you begin to swim. Chapter 4. Nature does not hustle. Let us take a moment to observe the mechanics of the world around us. If you were to walk into a deep forest or sit by the edge of a rushing river, you would notice a profound absence. You would notice the complete lack of what we call hustle. The oak tree does not scream in agony as it expands its trunk. The river does not grit its teeth to force its way around a rock. The falcon does not hold its breath and stress about the trajectory of its dive. In the physical world, distinct from human society, action is silent and effective. Nature does not grind. It does not rush. It does not subscribe to the belief that suffering is a requirement for progress. Yet despite this lack of desperate effort, everything gets done. The forest grows, the river carves the canyon, and the predator catches its prey. This brings us to the most uncomfortable truth about our modern economic philosophy. We have been conditioned to believe that the amount of pain we endure correlates directly to the value we produce. We call this the virtue of hard work. We wear our exhaustion like a badge of honor. We speak of the grind as if it were a holy pursuit. But if we look at this through the lens of physics and psychology, we see that this is not a path to wealth. It is a path to poverty. To understand why we must redefine the word effort. In the realm of physics, effort implies resistance. If you are pushing a boulder up a hill and your muscles are screaming, that is because you are fighting against gravity and friction. The sensation of hardness in the work is simply the feedback mechanism of inefficiency. It is the heat generated by friction. When a machine creates too much heat and noise, we say it is broken or inefficient. We fix it. We oil it. We align the gears. Yet when a human being creates heat and noise, we call it hard work, and we applaud it. This is the poverty trap. When you operate from a frequency of high effort, you are broadcasting to your own nervous system that you are in a state of resistance. You are telling your brain that the task at hand is difficult, dangerous, or unnatural. In response, your brain floods your system with cortisol and adrenaline. These are survival chemicals designed for short bursts of fight or flight. They are not designed for productivity. They shut down the creative centers of the prefrontal cortex to conserve energy for physical defense. This means that the harder you try, the less capable you become of seeing the strategic leverage points that actually create wealth. You become trapped in the sensation of the work, rather than focusing on the outcome of the work. Think of the individuals at the very top of their fields. The virtuoso pianist, the elite athlete, the visionary billionaire. When you watch a master pianist perform a complex concerto, you do not see them grimacing in pain. You do not see them sweating with the desperation of the grind. You see fluidity. You see grace. You see what psychologists call the flow state. The flow state is the exact opposite of the grind. In flow, there is no friction between the intention and the action. The doer and the deed become one. The master is not trying to play the piano. The master is simply playing. The action is happening through them with zero resistance. This is where the highest value is created. It is created in moments of absolute alignment, where the work feels easy because the skill level matches the challenge perfectly. Society, however, lies to the poor. It tells them that if they are not suffering, they are not earning. It convinces the working class that the sensation of struggle is the currency they are trading. This keeps them poor, because the market does not pay for your struggle. The market pays for your value.
The market does not care how many hours you suffered. It cares only about the problem you solved. If you solve $1 million problem in 5 minutes with 0 effort, you are rewarded with $1 million. If you spend 10 years pushing a rock up a hill, but solve no problem for anyone, you are rewarded with nothing but a broken back. The grind culture convinces people to focus on the cost they pay rather than the value they provide. It validates the input of sweat rather than the output of solutions. This is why hard work is a trap. It keeps you focused on the friction. It keeps you looking at the obstacle rather than the path of least resistance. Electricity always follows the path of least resistance. Water always follows the path of least resistance. Economic energy operates the same way. Money flows to where value is created with the greatest ease and speed. If you are blocking that flow with your own internal resistance, with your belief that it must be hard, you are acting as an insulator. You are stopping the current. To escape the poverty trap, one must stop worshiping the struggle. You must stop believing that the difficulty of a task justifies its existence. You must shift your focus from the quantity of your effort to the quality of your alignment. This does not mean you do nothing. It means you act with the ruthless efficiency of nature. You sharpen the axe so you do not have to swing it as hard. You build systems so you do not have to rely on willpower. You cultivate skills until the difficult becomes easy. When you see someone who makes wealth look easy, do not hate them for it. Do not call them lazy. Acknowledge that they have removed the friction that you are still holding on to. They have aligned themselves with the reality of the market, just as a glider aligns itself with the reality of the wind. The glider does not flap its wings in a panic. It rides the current. The grind is a vibration of desperation. It is the sound of gears grinding together without oil. It is the sound of a poverty mindset screaming for validation. Wealth is quiet. Competence is quiet. Nature does not hustle, because nature already owns the outcome. It simply moves into the space where the result exists. If you want to leave poverty behind, you must leave the addiction to the struggle behind. You must stop trying to force the door open and instead find the key. You must realize that the sensation of hard work is not a sign of virtue. It is a sign that you have not yet found the flow. Chapter 5. The flow state versus force. Consider the feeling of forcing a key into a lock that does not fit. You push, you wiggle the metal. You apply pressure until your knuckles turn white. You grit your teeth and lean your entire body weight against the door. Now consider the feeling of sliding the correct key into that same lock. There is a satisfying click. The bolt slides back without protest. The door opens. One scenario required sweat, frustration, and significant caloric expenditure. The other required almost no physical exertion at all. Yet our culture has convinced you that the first scenario is more noble than the second. We have been conditioned to believe that if the door does not open, the solution is not to find the right key, but to smash our shoulders against the wood until something breaks. This is the distinction between flow and force. This is the difference between mastery and the poverty trap we call hard work. When we speak of effort in the context of the grind, we are usually describing friction. In mechanics, friction is the resistance that one surface or object encounters when moving over another.
It generates heat. It wears down the parts. Eventually, it causes systemic failure. When you say you are working hard, you are often admitting that you are operating with high internal friction. You are moving against the grain of your own psychology, your own talents,
or the objective reality of the market. You are driving with the parking brake on. The smoke rising from the wheels looks like work. The smell of burning rubber feels like progress. But it is just resistance. The poverty trap is built on the idea that this resistance is a virtue. We look at the struggling entrepreneur, the exhausted parent, the student pulling all-nighters, and we applaud their pain. We mistake their inefficiency for dedication. But nature does not reward pain. Nature rewards alignment. The predator does not sprint until it collapses. It stalks quietly. It waits. It strikes with a burst of calculated energy that is over in seconds. The kill is secured not through the duration of the struggle, but through the precision of the action. Psychologists refer to the opposite of this friction as the flow state. It is a term that has been hijacked by mystics, but strictly speaking, it is a biological phenomenon. It is a state of transient hypofrontality. That is the technical term for what happens when the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for self-doubt and overthinking, temporarily quiets down. In this state, action and awareness merge. There is no gap between the intention and the result. A virtuoso pianist does not think about where to place their fingers. If they stopped to think, they would stumble. The music flows through the nervous system directly into the instrument. To the observer, it looks magical. To the performer, it feels effortless. This is the great paradox of high performance. The highest value is usually created with the least amount of perceived strain. The master carpenter drives the nail in one strike. The novice hits it 10 times, bends the nail, and damages the wood. The novice has worked harder. The novice is sweating. The novice is exhausted. But the novice has created less value. Grind culture is the celebration of the novice. It is a cult that worships the hammering, regardless of whether the house gets built. When you operate in a state of force, you are signaling to your own nervous system that you are in danger. Your cortisol spikes. Your vision narrows. Your body prepares for a threat. This creates a vibration of desperation that repels opportunity. In a negotiation, the person who is trying too hard usually loses. The person who is willing to walk away, who is relaxed and detached, holds the power. Desperation smells like sweat. Competence feels like cool air. The wealthy understand this distinction intuitively, or they learn it through failure. They seek leverage, not toil. Leverage is the art of getting more output for every unit of input. It is the search for the frictionless slope. If a venture feels like pushing a boulder up a hill, they do not push harder. They question the path. They look for the lever. They look for the pulley. They look for the right key. Meanwhile, the impoverished mindset doubles down on the pushing. They believe the boulder is testing them. They believe that if they just suffer enough, reality will yield. But reality is indifferent to your suffering. It is only responsive to your physics. You must stop conflating difficulty with value. Just because a task is excruciating does not mean it is worth doing. In fact, if a task feels consistently excruciating, it is a loud data point suggesting you are misaligned. You are a fish trying to climb a tree. You can work as hard as you want, but you will never beat the squirrel. The goal is to find the area where your natural momentum
aligns with the needs of the environment. In that channel, work ceases to feel like force. It feels like functionality. It implies a lack of internal resistance. You are not fighting yourself to do the work. You are not fighting the market to accept the work. This is not to say that you will not expend energy. An athlete in a flow state burns tremendous energy, but there is no psychological drag.
There is no internal argument. There is only the clean execution of the task at hand. The transition from poverty to wealth is often a transition from force to flow. It is the shift from thinking that life is a struggle to be survived to understanding that life is a system to be engineered. Stop trying to break down the door with your shoulder. Stop taking pride in your bruises. Put down the hammer. Pick up the key.
Chapter 6. The Seduction of Martyrdom. There is a strange and dangerous comfort in exhaustion. When you collapse into bed at the end of a long day, your body aching and your mind foggy, a specific chemical reward triggers in your brain. It feels like virtue. It feels like you have paid your dues to society. You look at your fatigue as a badge of honor, a tangible proof that you are a good person who is trying their absolute best. This feeling is the most effective trap ever set for human potential. This is the seduction of martyrdom. We must speak plainly about why this psychological mechanism keeps people in poverty. There is a deep-seated belief, buried in the cultural subconscious, that suffering is the currency of success. We are taught from a young age that if something is easy, it is suspicious. If something is hard, it is valuable. We equate the friction of the climb with the height of the summit. But these are two very different things. The seduction lies in the defense mechanism that hard work provides. When you are the hardest worker in the room, you build a fortress around your ego. If you fail, you can simply say that you gave it everything you had. You can point to the sweat on your brow and the dark circles under your eyes and claim that no one could have done more. The performance of struggle becomes a shield against criticism. It is impossible to critique a martyr without looking like a villain. Therefore, the martyr is safe. However, safety does not build wealth. Safety does not create freedom. In fact, this addiction to the grind is often a sophisticated form of procrastination. By filling every hour with low-value, high-effort tasks, you successfully avoid the terrifying work of high-level strategy. It is much easier to answer emails for 6 hours than it is to sit in silence for 60 minutes and realize your entire business model is flawed. The grind allows you to ignore the reality of your inefficiency.
Consider the physics of this mindset. When you prioritize effort, you are prioritizing resistance. You are subconsciously seeking out paths that offer the most friction, because that friction validates your identity as a grinder. You reject the easy solution because it feels like cheating. You reject leverage because it feels unearned. You become like a person trying to dig a swimming pool with a spoon. You are working incredibly hard. You are undoubtedly exhausted, but you are not effective. The economic reality of the world is cold and indifferent to your suffering. The market does not care how many hours you stayed awake. It does not care how much you sacrificed or how much pain you endured. The market only cares about value. It rewards the output, not the input. A software engineer who solves a $1 million problem in 15 minutes of flow state is rewarded infinitely more than a laborer who spends 15 hours digging a ditch. The ditch digger is working harder by every physical metric, but the engineer has detached their value from their suffering. This is why the seduction of martyrdom is a poverty trap. It keeps you focused on the cost of the transaction,
rather than the value of the outcome. You become obsessed with how much you are paying in sweat, assuming that the world owes you a refund in cash. But the world owes you nothing. This mindset also breeds a specific type of resentment. The martyr looks at those who succeed with ease and calls them lucky or fraudulent. You see someone achieve in a year what you have not achieved in a decade, and instead of asking what they know that you do not, you comfort yourself with the idea that they took a shortcut. You tell yourself that you are the noble one because you took the long, hard road. You fall in love with the struggle because the destination seems unreachable. Eventually, the struggle becomes the destination. You must look at your own life and ask if you are performing the role of the tired hero.
Do you tell your friends how busy you are with a tone of complaint that is actually a tone of bragging? Do you feel guilty when you are resting? Do you feel anxious when things are going smoothly? These are the symptoms of an addiction to resistance. You are vibrating at the frequency of desperation, believing that if you just push harder against the wall, it will eventually turn into a door. But walls are just walls. No amount of pushing changes the architectural reality of the structure. Breaking this addiction requires a terrifying shift. You have to be willing to look lazy to the outside observer. You have to be willing to do less, but to do it with absolute precision. You must abandon the safety of the grind and step into the vulnerability of efficiency. Efficiency is vulnerable because it removes your excuses. If you have the leverage, the tools, and the strategy, and you still fail, you cannot blame the lack of effort. You have to face the lack of competence. That is why the grind is so seductive. It protects you from facing your own inadequacies. But to escape the gravitational pull of poverty, you must stop worshiping your own exhaustion. You must realize that a calm, focused mind produces more than a frantic, tired one. You must understand that ease is not the enemy of progress. It is often the sign of mastery. The goal is not to see how much weight you can carry on your back. The goal is to build a wagon. The martyr carries the stone. The master builds the wheel. You must decide which one you want to be. The sensation of struggle is not a prerequisite for success. It is merely a signal that you have not yet found the path of least resistance. And in the physics of wealth, the path of least resistance is the only path that leads to the top. Chapter 7. Leverage, the wealth multiplier. Consider the simple arithmetic of the laborer. If your income is tied strictly to your exertion, then you are capped by your biology. You have a finite amount of energy. You have a hard limit of 24 hours in a day. Even if you forego sleep and push your body to the absolute brink of collapse, you eventually hit a ceiling. This is the linear trap. It is the equation of poverty. 1 unit of input yields 1 unit of output. This is where the majority of the population lives and dies. They trade time for money and sweat for security. They believe that to get more, they must give more of themselves, physically and mentally, until there is nothing left to give. But observe the architecture of wealth. You will notice a distinct absence of this linear equation. The wealthy do not work harder than the poor in terms of caloric expenditure or hours logged. In fact, they often work far less in the traditional sense. This is not because they are lazy. It is because they have mastered the concept of leverage. Leverage is the wealth multiplier. It is the tool that disconnects your inputs from your outputs. It is the mechanism that turns a linear line into a geometric curve. Archimedes understood this principle when he studied the physics of the physical world. He famously suggested that if you gave him a lever long enough
and a fulcrum on which to place it. He could move the entire world. He did not ask for more muscles. He did not ask for more hours. He asked for a lever. In the economic world, leverage comes in specific forms. The oldest form is labor. This is people working for you. It is the traditional model of the factory owner or the emperor. If you have 1,000 people working for you, then you have multiplied your own hours by 1,000. However, this requires management and leadership, and human beings are complex and difficult to align. It is a high-friction form of leverage. The second form is capital. This is money working for you. This is the domain of the investor and the banker. You use money to buy machines or assets that produce value while you sleep.
This is cleaner than labor, but it requires you to have money in the first place. It is a gated garden that has historically been difficult to enter without an inheritance or a stroke of luck. But we are living in a unique moment in history. We have access to a form of leverage that is permissionless. It requires no one's consent. It requires no vast inheritance. This is the leverage of code and media. Think about the software engineer. She writes a piece of code once. That single effort of writing the script is the input. But that code can run on 1 million servers simultaneously. It can serve 10 million users day and night without the engineer ever lifting a finger again. The input was finite, but the output is theoretically infinite. The same applies to media. You record a voice or write a book or film a video. You do the work once. But that piece of media can be consumed by the entire world at the same time. It replicates itself at zero marginal cost to you. This is the ultimate severance of time and money. When you operate with leverage, you are no longer paid for your effort. You are paid for your judgment. You are paid for the quality of your decisions. A single decision made by a leveraged individual can generate more value in 5 minutes than a lifetime of hard labor by a non-leveraged individual. This reality is uncomfortable. It offends our sense of fairness. We want to believe that the man sweating in the sun is worth more than the man thinking in a chair. We have been conditioned to view suffering as a virtue. We look at the person who is grinding and exhausting themselves, and we call them noble. We look at the person who uses leverage to achieve massive results with minimal friction, and we call them lucky, or perhaps even greedy. But this moral judgment is just another form of resistance. It is a psychological defense mechanism designed to keep you in the trap.
If you believe that hard work is the only path to nobility, then you will subconsciously sabotage any attempt to make your life easier. You will reject leverage because it feels like cheating. Chapter 8. Internal Sabotage. We have arrived at the most insidious barrier in the architecture of wealth. You have heard that nature does not hustle. You understand that leverage creates more output than brute force. You know intellectually that the grind is a cult of diminishing returns. Yet you likely find yourself returning to the struggle like a moth to a flame. You feel an almost gravitational pull toward exhaustion. This is not an accident, and it is not a virtue. This is internal sabotage. It is necessary to dissect why we are addicted to the sensation of difficulty. We must look closely at the psychological mechanism that equates pain with validity. For most of us, the concept of an easy life or effortless wealth triggers a deep and dormant alarm system. We look at a result that came without suffering, and we instinctively doubt its worth. If we did not bleed for it, then we do not believe we deserve it. This is the poverty trap in its purest psychological form. It is a belief system that demands a heavy toll for every ounce of progress. Think of your mind as a complex guidance system. When you set a goal for financial freedom, you are programming the destination. But there is a second, hidden program running in the background. This background program dictates how much you are allowed to have and how hard you must work to justify your existence. If your internal setting believes that money is the result of suffering, then you will unconsciously create suffering to validate the money. You will reject opportunities that are too simple. You will ignore leverage because it feels like cheating. You will manufacture crises and emergencies to keep your adrenaline high and your mind occupied. You are driving a high-performance vehicle with the parking brake fully engaged.
This friction is what we call hard work. We perceive the heat and the smoke and the grinding gears as evidence of our effort. We wear our stress like a badge of honor. But in physics, friction is not a source of power. Friction is the loss of power. It is energy leaving the system as waste heat. When you feel that intense resistance while working, it is not a sign that you are crushing it. It is a sign that you are misaligned. It indicates that part of you wants to move forward and part of you is clawing backward. Consider the narrative we tell ourselves about the wealthy. We often view them with a mixture of envy and suspicion. We say they got lucky or they took shortcuts. We demonize the very ease that we claim to want. This creates a cognitive dissonance that shatters our ability to execute. You cannot become what you resent. If you resent the person who generates wealth with ease, you will never allow yourself to generate wealth with ease. Your subconscious mind will protect your identity as a hard worker by ensuring that everything remains hard. This self-sabotage manifests in the refusal to delegate. It shows up when you obsess over minor details that do not impact the bottom line. It appears when you procrastinate on a high-leverage decision only to spend 10 hours on low-value busy work. You are filling the void with noise because silence feels dangerous. In the silence of efficiency, you are forced to confront who you are without the struggle. If you take away the grind, who are you? For many, the answer is terrifyingly empty. We use the grind to numb ourselves to the reality that we are free to choose a different path. The poverty trap is not just about a lack of resources. It is about a poverty of permission. You have not given yourself permission to succeed without suffering. You are trapped in a transactional relationship with the world where you believe you must pay with your life force to receive financial force. This exchange rate is broken. The market does not care how hard you worked. The market only cares about the value you provided. A software script written in 2 hours that saves a company millions of dollars is worth more than 10 years of digging ditches. The ditch digger works harder by the definition of caloric output and physical strain. But the market rewards the leverage. When you operate from a place of internal sabotage, you resent the script and you romanticize the ditch. You convince yourself that the physical toll makes you noble. This nobility is a consolation prize for staying poor. It is a story we tell ourselves to make the lack of results bearable. But you are not here for consolation prizes. You are here for effectiveness. To dismantle this sabotage, you must observe your own resistance. When you feel the familiar tightening of the chest, or the urge to overcomplicate a simple task, you must stop. Recognize that this is not the work requiring more effort. This is your ego requiring more drama. You are trying to prove your worth through exertion. You must detach your self-esteem from your exhaustion. Your value as a human being is not calculated by how tired you are at the end of the day.
Chapter 9. The Illusion of Security. You believe that your exhaustion is a receipt. You believe that if you collapse into bed at the end of the day, your bones aching and your mind foggy, you have paid your dues to society. You treat fatigue as if it were a currency that you can trade for safety. This is the most dangerous lie you have ever been told. This is the illusion of security. We are raised on a very specific narrative that equates suffering with survival. From the moment we enter the school system, we are taught that the grade belongs to the one who studied the longest, not necessarily the one who understood the material the fastest. We are conditioned to look at the clock, to measure our worth in minutes and hours, and to view ease with suspicion. If something comes easily to you, you feel guilty. You feel as though you are cheating the system. You have been trained to believe that if you are not struggling, you are not safe. But look at the economic reality of the world around you. The hardest working people, the ones who destroy their bodies and trade every waking hour for a wage, are often the ones with the least amount of security. They are one missed paycheck away from ruin. They are one injury away from obsolescence. Their security is a house of cards built on the foundation of their own physical capacity to endure pain. This is not security. This is fragility masquerading as fortitude. True security never comes from the capacity to withstand force. It comes from the ability to direct it. When you rely on hard work alone, you are placing a bet on your own stamina. You are betting that you can outrun inflation, outlast the market, and outwork the competition. But biology is not on your side. You will age, you will tire, and eventually a system, a machine, or a person who understands leverage will outperform you while expending a fraction of the energy. This brings us back to the concept of resistance. When we speak of the frequency of effort, we are speaking about friction. If you are driving a car and the engine is screaming, the temperature gauge is redlining, and the frame is shaking, you do not think the car is performing well. You know that the car is about to break. That noise and that heat are signs of inefficiency. They are signs of resistance. Yet when we feel that same heat and friction in our own lives, we pat ourselves on the back. We call it hustle. We call it grinding. We wear our inefficiency like a badge of honor. We cling to this inefficiency because it feels safe. Busyness is the ultimate anesthetic. As long as you are running around, answering emails, moving boxes, and putting out fires, you do not have to face the terrifying silence of strategy. You do not have to ask yourself if you are heading in the right direction, because you are too busy looking at your feet. The grind blinds you. It narrows your vision until all you can see is the task directly in front of you. It prevents you from seeing the cliff edge you are marching toward. The illusion of security convinces you that input equals output. It tells you that if you put in 10 units of pain, you will get 10 units of reward. But the world is not linear. It is exponential. A software engineer writes code once, and it runs 1,000,000 times without him lifting a finger again. An investor places capital once, and it compounds while he sleeps. These people are not working hard in the traditional sense. They have removed the friction. They have removed the resistance. They have stopped trying to push the boulder up the hill and have instead built a machine to lift it for them. You might feel a spike of anger hearing this. That anger is a defense mechanism. It is the part of you that wants to justify the years of struggle. You want to believe that your sacrifice means something, And it does mean something, but it does not mean you are secure. It simply means you are tired. The marketplace does not care about your fatigue. It does not care about your sacrifice. It only cares about the value you provide. If you can provide massive value with zero effort, the market rewards you. If you provide zero value with massive effort, the market ignores you. Chapter 10. Strategic Laziness. There is a secret whispered in the corridors of the ultra-wealthy that would likely enrage the average working person. It is a concept that seems to violate the very foundation of the meritocracy we are taught to revere from the moment we enter the school system. We are raised on the belief that sweat is the currency of success. We are told that if we are not exhausted, we are not trying hard enough.
But the quiet reality of high performance is that sweat is often just a sign of inefficiency. The frantic motion we associate with ambition is usually nothing more than anxiety masked as productivity. To truly escape the gravitational pull of poverty and mediocrity, we must embrace a concept that sounds almost blasphemous. We must embrace strategic laziness. When we hear the word lazy, we immediately recoil. The word carries a heavy cultural stigma. It summons images of neglect and apathy and failure. It suggests a lack of character or a defect of the will. However, in the context of leverage and wealth creation, laziness is not about sloth. It is about a ruthless dedication to efficiency. It is the intelligent refusal to expend energy on things that do not matter. Consider the history of human innovation. Every major technological leap was driven by a form of constructive laziness. We did not want to carry water in buckets over long distances, so we invented aqueducts and plumbing. We did not want to walk hundreds of miles, so we tamed horses and eventually built engines. We did not want to perform repetitive calculations by hand, so we built computers. The underlying drive of progress is the desire to achieve more while doing less. It is the biological imperative to conserve energy while maximizing output. Yet somewhere along the line, we moralized the struggle itself. We convinced ourselves that the harder the path, the more virtuous the traveler. Strategic laziness rejects this morality of suffering. It posits that if you are working 18 hours a day, you are likely not thinking clearly enough to build a fortune. You are too busy digging the hole to realize you are in the wrong field. The person who engages in strategic laziness pauses before picking up the shovel. They ask if there is a machine that can do the digging. They ask if the digging is even necessary. They look for the lever. This brings us to the distinction between motion and action. Most people are addicted to motion. Motion feels like progress because it keeps the adrenaline pumping and the mind occupied. Answering emails is motion. Attending endless meetings is motion. Obsessing over minor details is motion. It feels like work. It feels noble, but it is often just friction. It is resistance disguised as effort. Action, on the other hand, is often quiet. It is the result of a period of stillness where a strategy was formulated. Action is the single phone call that closes a deal. Action is the design of a system that automates 1,000 hours of labor. The strategist looks lazy to the observer because they are not running around in a panic. They are sitting still. They are thinking. And when they finally move, they move with a precision that renders hard work obsolete. The trap of poverty is largely a trap of time and energy depletion. When you trade your time for money in a linear fashion, you are capping your potential at the limits of your physical endurance.
You can only work so hard before you break. The system of grinding is designed to keep you tired. When you are tired, you make safe choices. You cling to the illusion of security. You do not have the mental bandwidth to engineer an escape. Strategic laziness is the deliberate preservation of that bandwidth. It is the understanding that your energy is your most precious capital, and you cannot afford to squander it on low-value tasks. This requires a difficult psychological shift. You must be willing to disappoint people. You must be willing to say no to the trivial many so that you can focus on the vital few. You have to be willing to look unproductive to the outside world while you are building the internal architecture of your success. It means prioritizing rest not as a reward for work done, but as a prerequisite for high-quality decisions. A decision made in a state of exhaustion is almost always a decision based on fear.
A decision made in a state of rest and clarity is a decision based on opportunities.
Chapter 11. The Frequency of Competence. Consider the image of the son raised of more of competence. Consider the image of the son raised of more of competence. Consider the image of the son raised of more of competence. Consider the image of the son raised of more of competence. Consider the image of the son raised of more of competence. Consider the image of the son raised of more of competence. Chapter 11. Watching an Apprentice. The apprentice is covered in sweat. His muscles are tense. His breathing is ragged. He is striking the stone with everything he has. To the untrained eye, this looks like hard work. It looks like dedication. It looks like the very definition of effort. But the master sees something else. The master sees inefficiency. The master sees a lack of understanding. The master sees a man fighting against the material, rather than working with it. This creates a vital distinction that we must make if we are to escape the trap of poverty. We must distinguish between the sensation of effort and the reality of competence. There is a specific resonance to competence. It is a frequency of operation where friction disappears. When you watch a professional athlete at the peak of their performance, they do not look like they are struggling. They look fluid. They look like water moving through a canyon. The basketball player releasing a shot does not grunt with the weight of the world on his shoulders. The motion is smooth. It is calibrated. It is precise. This is the frequency of competence. It is the absence of unnecessary noise. Society has conditioned you to believe that the noise is the point. You have been taught that if you are not suffering, you are not working. This is a lie designed to keep you on the treadmill. The grind culture tells you that the sweat is the currency. But the market does not pay for your sweat. The market pays for your results. If you can achieve the same result with half the effort because you possess a higher level of skill, then you have doubled your value. If you require 10 times the effort to achieve the same result because you refuse to learn the proper technique, then you have devalued yourself by a factor of 10. This is why hard work is a poverty trap. It focuses your attention on the cost you are paying, rather than the value you are creating. You become obsessed with how tired you are. You wear your exhaustion like a badge of honor. You tell your friends how late you stayed up and how many hours you logged. You are signaling your effort because you lack the competence to signal your results. When you operate at the frequency of competence, you stop trying to force the world to bend to your will. Instead, you understand the mechanics of the world, and you align yourself with them. Think of a lever. A man who does not understand physics will try to lift a heavy boulder with his bare hands. He will strain, and he will likely fail. He is working hard, he is putting in the effort, but he is operating at the frequency of desperation. Another man understands leverage. He finds a fulcrum. He uses a long bar. He applies a fraction of the force, and the boulder moves. He is not working hard, he is working with competence. The tragedy of the modern worker is that he believes he must be the man lifting the boulder with his bare hands. He believes that using the lever is cheating. He thinks that if it feels easy, he does not deserve the reward. This psychological block is the ceiling of your wealth. You must dismantle the belief that money is a reward for pain. Money is a medium of exchange for value. Value is created through solved problems. The smoother the solution, the higher the value. True competence is boring to watch because it is devoid of drama. When a pilot lands a plane perfectly, nobody notices. There is no screaming, there are no sparks. There is just a gentle transition from air to ground. That is competence. If the pilot has to wrestle the controls and the plane bounces and the tires screech, everyone notices. That is hard work. That is effort. And it is a sign that something has gone wrong. We must strive to reach a state where our actions are automatic and precise.
In psychology, this is known as unconscious competence. It is the stage where you no longer need to think about the mechanics of what you are doing. You simply intend for a result, and your mind and body execute the necessary steps to achieve it. This is where the flow state lives. This is where wealth is generated. When you are in this state, you are not vibrating with the anxiety of the grind. You are not broadcasting desperation. You are transmitting a signal of absolute certainty. People trust certainty. Investors trust certainty. Clients trust certainty. They do not trust the man who looks like he is about to collapse. They do not trust the man who makes everything look difficult. They back the man who makes the impossible look routine. Chapter 12. Realignment of Duty. Most people wear their exhaustion like a soldier wears a medal. They believe that the heaviness of their obligation is proof of their virtue. You see this everywhere you look. You see it in the father who sighs loudly before taking out the trash. You see it in the executive who brags about sleeping 4 hours a night. You see it in the student who highlights every single line of a textbook until the page bleeds with neon ink. They are all participating in a collective delusion. They believe that duty must be painful to be valid. This is the poverty trap of the spirit, which inevitably manifests as a poverty trap in your bank account. The segment we are exploring now is called the realignment of duty. It requires us to shatter the romantic connection between responsibility and suffering. To understand this, we have to look at the physics of human psychology. When you say you are working hard, what you are often saying is that you are encountering resistance. If you are pushing a boulder up a hill, that is hard work. But if you are guiding a boulder down a hill, you are simply managing momentum. The weight of the boulder has not changed. The gravity has not changed. The only variable that has shifted is your alignment relative to the objective reality. The cult of the grind teaches you that you should always be pushing uphill. It suggests that if the path is easy, you must be cheating. This is why the poor stay poor. They view the path of least resistance as a character flaw. They think that if they are not sweating, they are not earning. But let us look at the concept of duty through a secular, mechanical lens. An engine that is loud, vibrates violently, and emits black smoke is working very hard. It is expending massive amounts of energy.
But a mechanic does not look at that engine and praise its work ethic. The mechanic sees an inefficient machine that is losing power to heat and friction. That is what grinding is. It is internal friction. It is the sound of your own psychology grating against the task at hand. A high-performance engine is quiet. It hums. It converts fuel into motion with minimal waste. This is the goal of realignment. We are not talking about abandoning your responsibilities. We are talking about changing the angle of attack so that the friction disappears. When you operate from a state of misalignment, every task feels like a theft of your time. You are trading your life for a paycheck, and you resent the transaction. That resentment creates drag. You have to force yourself to focus. You have to force yourself to be polite. You have to force yourself to innovate. This force requires energy. You are spending 50% of your energy just fighting your own desire to be somewhere else. The wealthy, the truly effective, and the masters of their craft do not operate this way. They have realigned their concept of duty. They do not see work as something they must survive. They see it as an extension of their competence. When a master pianist sits down to play a complex concerto, they are concentrating, yes. They are expending calories, yes.
But they are not working hard in the sense of overcoming resistance. They are flowing. The music is not a burden they carry. It is a release of who they are. This sounds like a luxury for the artist, but it applies to the accountant and the bricklayer just as well. It is a matter of narrative. If your narrative is that you are a slave to the system, every email you send is a shackle. If your narrative is that you are a strategic architect of your own future, that same email is a brick in the foundation of your empire. The action is identical. The keystrokes are the same. But the internal frequency is different. One depletes you, the other charges you. Society trains you to sabotage this alignment. From a young age, you are taught that homework is a chore, that chores are a punishment, and that jobs are a necessary evil. You are conditioned to expect resistance. You are conditioned to believe that if you enjoy something, it cannot possibly be productive. This creates a psychological split. You have your work self, which is miserable but responsible, and your real self, which is happy but unproductive. Realignment of duty demands that you merge these two entities. You must find the angle where your natural inclinations push the boulder downhill. If you are naturally analytical, duty is not a spreadsheet you have to fill out. Duty is the puzzle you get to solve. If you are naturally charismatic, sales is not a terrifying obligation to convince strangers. Sales is a conversation where you get to influence outcomes. This is why the phrase, hard work is a poverty trap. It implies that the value you generate is tied to the pain you endure. The market does not care about your pain. The economy is an unfeeling machine. It does not write you a check because you suffered. It writes you a check because you provided value. If you can provide massive value with zero effort because you are perfectly aligned with the task, the market rewards you exactly the same as if you bled for it. In fact, it often rewards you more because your work will be cleaner, faster, and more sustainable. Chapter 13. The Identity Shift. The most dangerous prison is the one you build for yourself, and the bars of this cell are made of your own self-perception. We have arrived at the crux of the matter, which is the identity shift. Until this moment, we have discussed the external mechanics of the grind and the societal conditioning that praises exhaustion. We have analyzed why nature seeks the path of least resistance,
and why human beings uniquely choose the path of maximum friction. But understanding these concepts intellectually is not enough to change your trajectory. You can know that leverage is superior to labor, and still wake up tomorrow morning with a compulsion to suffer. This happens because your identity is currently calibrated to the frequency of struggle. You likely view yourself as a hard worker. You wear this label like a badge of honor. When you describe yourself to others, you emphasize your resilience and your capacity to endure pain. You take pride in how many hours you log and how little sleep you get. This seems virtuous on the surface. However, deep within your psychological architecture, this identity creates a ceiling on your potential wealth and freedom. If your identity is tied to the act of working hard, then you cannot allow yourself to succeed easily. If success comes without struggle, you will feel like a fraud. You will feel that you have cheated the system. Because your self-worth is tethered to the difficulty of the task, you will subconsciously sabotage any opportunity that looks too easy. You will invent problems where none exist, simply to justify the exertion that validates your existence. This is the psychological homeostatic set point of the poverty trap. Just as a thermostat regulates the temperature of a room, your identity regulates the level of struggle in your life. If things become too efficient or too profitable, with too little effort, your internal alarm system triggers. You feel anxiety. You feel guilty. You feel that you are not doing your duty. To return to your comfort zone, you will procrastinate or overcomplicate a project, or take on unnecessary burdens until the pressure returns to the level you are accustomed to. You are addicted to the resistance because the resistance tells you that you are alive and that you are good. To escape the trap of hard work, you must undergo a fundamental identity shift. You must stop identifying as a laborer and start identifying as an operator. A laborer sells effort. An operator sells outcomes. The laborer asks how much pain they can endure to get the prize. The operator asks how they can remove the friction to get the prize faster. This is not a matter of semantics. It is a matter of neurological wiring. When you shift your identity, you change the lens through which you view the world. The hard worker looks for heavy stones to lift. The operator looks for a lever. Consider the wealthy individual who makes a single decision that generates millions of dollars. They did not sweat. They did not grind. They did not lose sleep. They used judgment and leverage. If they held your identity, they would feel immense guilt for this disproportionate return. They might even give the money away or lose it, just to align with the belief that money must be earned through pain. But they do not hold your identity. They view themselves as architects of value. They believe they are paid for their competence and their insight, not for their suffering. Because they do not worship effort, they are free to utilize the path of least resistance. This shift requires you to divorce your self-worth from your suffering. You must accept that ease is not the enemy of virtue.
Ease is the hallmark of mastery. When an athlete enters a flow state, they are not thinking about how hard they are trying. They are moving with precision and economy. The movement is effortless because the internal resistance has vanished. The amateur strains and grunts and forces the motion. The master simply allows it to happen. In the realm of economics and career, the same principle applies. The grind is the mark of the amateur who is fighting against the current. The flow is the mark of the professional who has learned to use the current. The last chapter. Dropping the stone. You have spent years convincing yourself that the pain is the point. You believe that if your muscles are not burning and your mind is not racing, then you do not deserve the reward.
This is the final illusion you must shatter. Imagine you are holding a heavy stone above your head. Your arms shake and your sweat falls, but you have accomplished nothing other than your own exhaustion. The economy does not pay you for how much you suffer. It pays you for the value you provide. The final transformation requires you to simply drop the stone. When you stop equating difficulty with morality, you release the friction that has held you back. You move from the vibration of desperation into the frequency of competence. This is not about doing nothing. It is about acting with such precision and leverage that the action feels weightless. Do not mistake the absence of struggle for the absence of work. It is merely the presence of mastery. Let go of the need to bleed for your bread. Step into the clarity of efficient action and watch how reality responds to a mind at peace.